We need to talk about what happened in Karur, Tamil Nadu, a political rally which should have been a show of support turned into an absolute catastrophe. We're going to try and understand how a crowd of thousands of people ended up in a deadly stampede and, importantly, what warning signs might have been missed along the way.
First, let's just start with the numbers because they tell a really grim story. 36. That's the number of people who lost their lives. And on top of that, another 46 people were injured, just caught up in all the chaos.
And all of this happened in a crowd that the police estimated was over 30,000 strong. I mean, how does an event of that size go so tragically wrong?
Okay, so let's set the scene. What exactly was this event, and why did it draw such an absolutely massive crowd?
So this was a rally for the Tamilaga Vetri Karagam, or TVK party. And it's led by the incredibly popular actor-turned-politician, Vijay. You know, his star power is just immense, and that's what drew thousands upon thousands of supporters. It turned what was supposed to be a political gathering into a real potential pressure cooker. So, here's the critical question. How does a crowd of enthusiastic supporters turn into a deadly stampede? Let's walk through the sequence of events that led to this disaster.
It seems to have unfolded like this tragic chain reaction. It all started with the huge crowd gathering, right? But the real turning point seems to be a major delay in Vijay's arrival. As people were waiting, the crowd just kept getting bigger. And not just bigger, but denser, more packed in. And when you have that many people squeezed together, any tiny movement can create a massive ripple effect. Reports started coming in that people were fainting, from the heat and just the lack of space. That seems to have triggered a wave of panic. That panic led to a surge forward, people just desperately pushing for air, for space, and that's the moment it turned into a deadly stampede. The sheer pressure of the crowd itself became fatal.
And this brings us to the hardest question of all. Could this have been prevented? Well, it looks like there were some very clear warning signs, long before the rally even started. This tragedy didn't just happen in a vacuum. There was a rally for Vijay right before this one, in Tiruchirappalli, that caused a citywide 6-hour traffic jam. That right there is a huge signal that the crowds were way bigger than the organizers could handle. Because of that, police specifically laid out some really strict safety conditions for this event in Karur. They clearly recognized the potential danger. But here's where you see this huge disconnect. On one hand, you had these official rules on paper, designed to keep people safe. But the reality on the ground? It was just chaos. Those safety conditions were reportedly ignored. You had vulnerable people, children, even infants, and the elderly, right in the densest parts of the crowd. Literally the most dangerous place they could possibly be. And the risk was so obvious that it wasn't just the police who were concerned. The Madras High Court itself actually stepped in beforehand and asked this chillingly prophetic question. If something untoward happens, who will take the responsibility? It was a question that went from being a hypothetical warning to a heartbreaking reality. Now, in the aftermath, all of that grief has turned into urgent and just heartbreaking questions about accountability. So we're left with these unavoidable questions. I mean, when you think about the chaos at the last rally, the specific police rules, and a direct warning from the High Court, was this tragedy really unavoidable? And if it was avoidable, then who failed? Who failed in their duty to keep those 30,000 people safe? And ultimately, for the 36 families who are now grieving, and for a public that is demanding answers, the one question that remains is this: who is going to be held accountable for this catastrophic failure?